Yo YouTube! This is my video for Monday the 4th of August, and I'm on my way to my first job, and I'm really pleased with this first job. I got this on Friday, and it's going from Sleaford, which is about 22 miles away from where I live. It's actually more like 35 minutes drive than half an hour. I was thinking it being half an hour, but it's actually a bit more than that. And I'll pick up a long wheelbase van load, and it's going to go to Gloucester. And I've got this for £175, 175, and the loaded miles is 145 miles. So I'm very pleased with this job. And I'll let you know how today goes as and when it happens. The next thing I want to talk about is something I'm not sure I want to talk about, but I thought I'll mention it. So a bit of context. I've always been pretty dissatisfied with aspects of my life. Traditionally it was about my work, or about my weight, about my money, then latterly about my relationship, about being a parent, then more latterly more about my mind and how I was not really happy with how I thought about stuff. So I did tend to focus quite a lot on I want to be better than I am. The next context is I'm reasonably intelligent, and so I can logically reason things out, and I do that a lot. So I can't just be satisfied with being not quite as good as I want to be. I have to try and do something about that. And for those two reasons, I tend to be quite into self-development as a concept. And what I mean by that is being a better version of myself in whatever way that means. It could be physically, it could be mentally, it could be economically, it could be socially. And that really is the core of who I am. I'm always trying to be a bit better than I currently am, and I quite like that bit about me. It's just that my mind is so insatiable, I'm never going to get to a point where I actually think, oh, you are better now than you used to be, and be happy with that. So there's kind of a problem with the idea that I can improve myself, because I'll never get to a point where I feel I'm happy with that. There was a period between 50 and 51 where everything just clicked together, and everything kind of happened. I was out of my long-term marriage in terms of a emotional way. We weren't yet divorced, but I was sort of out of that and just sort of living a single life effectively. And I also found a job that I loved, which was my previous job to this, and I also had lost a lot of weight. So I remember that period of my life, that year, as being really, pretty much, in retrospect, a really positive time. And that I was in control, I was developing myself as a person. That's when I also developed my mission statement and clarified what my values are as a person. So and also that's when I began to understand how my brain worked a bit better, and that maybe having autism was actually a thing. So I always go back to that year as being this example of where it all did work. And I remember that the start of that year, things clicked in my head in terms of my mindset being in the right place to accept change and to implement change. And so I thought I'll talk about that today, because I feel a bit like I'm almost there again, where I can make positive changes in my life on a consistent basis and not worry about it all falling apart, because I've got my mindset right. I have done therapy for almost a year. That's definitely helped. I definitely think that was one step forward to get to where I am now. But I feel tantalisingly close to the word I noticed is click into place and start really motoring along self-improvement. And I just want to mention a few of the things that I want to be doing more of that I don't quite yet. I'm not quite there. So the first thing is losing weight, which I am actually doing, but I'm doing it more, I think, out of a byproduct of my medication and my dialysis. I am losing weight slowly. My second thing is I want to read more or listen to audiobooks more about things that are more fulfilling in terms of my mind. I suppose things that will give me inspiration is probably the thing, and things that give me more factual information. I do want to be more physically active, and I can see now, beginning to see in my mind's eye situations where I might do something more physically active all the time when I've had my back operation, because I feel very limited in what I can do physically at the moment. But then I'm thinking to myself, well, why are you waiting to the back operation? Why don't you just do something now that's very limited just to get started? And I know that's the start of me sort of thinking, okay, let's just do some stretches then. I don't do that because that comes down to a bit of lack of motivation, I think. The other thing I want to be better at is better at this job, really. That's sort of earning more money. And that's, I think, a twofold. I've identified twofold things, both of which I find difficult, but both of which I think aren't impossible. One is to outreach more to companies that will give me work directly. And I don't mean getting my customers, I really mean just being a bit more open to chasing is the word I use, chasing shippers that have regular jobs near me. So if I did a job, for example, let's say this job from Sleaford to Gloucester, what I could do now is do a great job, which I always think I do, and then call the shipper afterwards and say, right, now I've done that job for you, if that ever comes up again, let me know and I'll do it for you at the same price. And the second thing is, I do know that getting up early means I get an early job in, which gives me a better chance of getting the 3 jobs in a day if I do 3 jobs. And I've always been reluctant and found it tough to do that. All it is my brain saying, you find that hard. It's not actually that hard. It's a bit uncomfortable to get up early. It's a bit uncomfortable for me to, sort of go to bed earlier and to sleep better. But if I was going to prioritise getting more work, then obviously I could do that. And I know I've said in the past, I find I'm not really a morning person, and I find that I'm to wake up more in the evening than the morning. And I know there are people out there who'll be shouting at the screen saying, I don't like getting up in the morning, so I do it anyway because I have to get to work. And it is unpleasant, you just get on with it. And to those people, I say, you're absolutely right. And I'm far too comfortable with having comfort. And I need to be a bit more comfortable with being uncomfortable and getting up earlier and just getting to work. And the reason why I thought about this, the reason that I realised it was actually my own self-indulgent brain that was doing it, rather than necessarily anything else, is if I have a job like this to do, my alarm went off at 6:30 today, and I got out of bed and I got ready for work because I was getting ready for work to do a job because that was motivating. So getting out of bed to do work is quite motivating. If I've got a job, I'll get out of bed and I'll do it. If I don't have a job, that's the bit that is I find not motivating. So getting up early to try and find a job is more difficult, but that shouldn't change my actions, which is getting up early and being ready for work. So it's kind of what I've kind of realised, and I just you kind of know these things, but it takes me some time to kind of really embed it in my brain. Is a lot of the things I find difficult, I could just be better at dealing with them and just not worry so much about it. And I realise that this person, that's online shouting at me on the screen saying, we're all tired, mate, get on with it, stop moaning. You know that person? It's not you, it's my effing ego. It's my brain doing that. And I realised this morning, all the trolling in the world online is exactly the same is what I get in my head all the time anyway, because I have two parts to my mind. There's the me, who I believe is me and who I want to, who I like and who I get on with. Then there's the other side, which I call my ego, which is the side that annoys me, that puts me down, that tells me I'm crap, that says you can't do something. And unfortunately, my ego brain has a lot of sway over my actions. And I've chosen to ignore trolls online. That's my choice. So why can't I choose to ignore my ego? And I know it's the right thing to do, I just find it quite difficult. But I thought if I say it out loud and publish it, it might make it easy for me to deal with that destructive side of my character, which always puts me down, and I don't need to listen to it anymore. Who knows if it's going to work, but it's another tactic that I'm going to try to get to a better place in terms of being a better person tomorrow than I am today, or a better person today than I was yesterday. Thank you for listening. I do appreciate it. I'll speak to you later. Quick update then, it is now nearly 9 o'clock. I picked up my load from Sleaford at 8:30. I was sort of off site at 8:30, and I did implement what I said I was going to start doing, which was I rang the shipper, I gave them an update about that I'd loaded the goods on board and my ETA, and then I asked them if they had a similar job like this in the future, please consider me doing it, because I like doing this work for them. So whether it goes anywhere I don't know, but at least I've started doing that. It wasn't too difficult to do in the end. I'm never quite sure how I come across. When I'm on the phone, I'm finding it quite hard to know how to pitch the tone, and so I tend to try and think, make sure you come across as being friendly and professional, but friendly being the main thing. So I tend to be on the more light-hearted side of the scale, and I think that's my natural way of talking to people. I don't know how it comes across, but I'm quite stressed when I do it, so I kind of default to my usual way of talking. As I'm talking to you now on YouTube, I'm making myself talk slower and trying to be more clear, and I think I probably need to do that when I'm talking on the phone. I need to practice doing it, I think, and be a bit more mindful about the quality of my speech when I'm talking on the phone. So I've just come up with that idea as I was talking to you right now, so I'll try it next time. Cheers. Hi there YouTube, so this is my update. I've got myself a second job, which has turned out to be a little bit more awkward than I was hoping. It was going from a GL1 postcode and I was at a GL2 postcode, so it was only about 15 minutes drive, about 3 or 4 miles to get to pick up. And when I arrived, I went in and they had no idea what I was there for. I was going from a hire place to a construction site, from Gloucester to Bristol. The job was booked for a long wheelbase van job, and I put £60 on originally for 37 loaded miles. I didn't get a phone call, didn't get a CX message, I just got a text asking if they'd do it for 50, which I thought was fine because I only just put a bid on, I'd just been looking for work. So I said I would do 50. They sent through the details. I wanted to double check when I read the notes in the CX booking that I could fit the item on. I was pretty sure I could, but I wanted to double check. I tried ringing the shipper, but the phone numbers weren't working, so I had to resort to texting, and then when I did some texting, my phone signal just dropped out. So it was all a bit hectic at the start. I started driving towards the GL1 postcode as I was trying to start my phone. I restarted my phone and eventually got to the point where I was happy I could fit the item on my load, accepted the CX, and then I was about 5 minutes away from the pickup at this point. So then I arrived, and at this point they had no idea at the hire place what I was there for. So I rang the customer's number, who I'm going to. he knew that there was something coming but didn't know who had ordered it. He gave me someone else who worked for his company's number, who I tried. That phone went to voicemail. So at this point I texted back the shipper. I couldn't ring the shipper because I wouldn't answer the phone. I had to keep texting them. And so I was texting them details about what I'd tried, what was happening. And anyway, I won't go through the whole story, but basically, in the end, eventually, after 45 minutes after I arrived, we got the item ordered and delivered. The problem was it hadn't actually been ordered on the system for the people I was picking up from. So it was a cock up midway through the chain. I have requested £7.50, which is a quarter of an hour's worth of waiting, with the half an hour being for free. Mainly I've done that because of two reasons. The first reason is I was bargained down by £10 at the start of the process, so if it was a quick easy job I'm happy with that, but it didn't become that. And secondly, rather than just leaving it as just a free 45 minutes, I did quite a lot of chasing in that time. I was ringing people, I was ringing other numbers and explaining the situation, taking my phone to the desk, putting it on speakerphone. I was doing a lot of facilitating to try and resolve this, and I don't believe that it would have been done anywhere near as quickly if I hadn't done that. So I've saved them money by quickly highlighting what the problem was, feeding it back, and then waiting for them to get back to me. So usually I might just think let's ignore that, but for me I've earned my £7.50. I'm on my way now to Bristol. It's about an hour and a quarter's drive away. It's as I said, it's 37 miles in total, and so I should be offloaded at the construction site at something like 2:45, and then I've got to try and find a little job heading away from Bristol. If I end up just doing jobs around this area and then going home empty, I think that might work for me. I'm not going to worry about the dead miles if I've made the money. If I can make £300 gross, then I don't mind doing dead miles to go home at the end of it. But I'll try and get something heading towards home if I can. And at the moment I'll be on, well, assuming I get the 750, which isn't guaranteed, I'll be on close to £230. So another £70 job would get me there. So one more decent job and I'll just drive home empty and I've made my money for the day. Update time. The time now is 4:20, and I've just left my pickup point for my third job of the day, which is in Melksham, and they've put on the short wheelbase van load, which is one pallet, and I'm taking that to Lincoln. It's going to be at the very minimum 3 3/4 hours journey, but I've put on the CX app that I expect to be there at 8:30. Just give myself a bit of leeway in case things get more difficult, particularly with the traffic. And this is a job that's 160 miles loaded, and I'm getting £150, 150. And then Lincoln's about an hour away from my home, so I should be home around about 9:30, maybe a bit early depending on how quickly I get to Lincoln. And also I should make gross £382.50. And the most important thing from my point of view that I think about is if I take off about £60, let's say £62.50 for my fuel, which is about what I'll be spending for today, I will have made net of fuel today about £320, and that in itself will cover my weekly business costs. So whatever I earn after today, net of fuel, will be my actual income for this week. So I'm a happy boy. It's going to be a longish day, but it's all sort of, my day is now planned for me. I know what I've got to do, just got to do it now. Drive to Lincoln, offload, drive home, finished. Not got to bid on any jobs or worry about where I'm going or what time I've got to be there for. So it's this nice feeling. I hope you're having a good day, and I'll let you know at the end of the day my final stats. Cheers. Hello there, so this is my final video for today, showing my stats, and I'm very pleased with how today's gone. I'm about 50 minutes from home, still a bit of light left, and here they are. So based on an average fuel price from last week of 14.12 pence per mile, although I'm willing to fill up for tomorrow because I'm going to only have enough to get home tonight and not much else. I've done 472 miles today, 472. I will have worked a total of 14 hours, and I've made from 3 CX jobs £382.50. I've spent on fuel £66.65, which means that my net income today after fuel comes to £316, which is exactly the figure I need to cover my fixed business costs for this week. So every penny that I earn this week net is going to be my income, and it's only Monday, so I'm looking forward to a productive, successful week financially to make up for last week's rubbishy week, and hopefully if I average out the 2 weeks I'll have made my target over 2 weeks that I would find acceptable. So I'll give you a figure. I made about 125 last week, so if I was to make this week, let's say £500 net from now onwards, that'll be a total over the 2 weeks of £630 odd, and that would be an average of £330 per week, which I would be happy with. So roughly speaking, £500 net plus for the rest of this week, and I'll be happy. I've got 3 full days, and I can probably get something done maybe tomorrow afternoon, depending on how busy it is on the CX. So I've got a chance of achieving that, and that's going to be my aim. So, thank you very much for listening to this video. I hope that you are being at least as successful as I've been today, if not more. I'll be back to work on Wednesday, possibly tomorrow afternoon, but let's assume Wednesday. Farewell, friends.